Hey there, you have missed some helpful tips in the earlier parts. It could be worth starting from the beginning to get the most out of the project. Now, for the pumpkin setup. I tried many methods with the particle systems to spread them on the map, but the results didn't turn out well, and I didn't like them. So we are going to try another method after this step. Tip number 11. How to parent object to object. Select the object that you want to parent first. Then select the object that you wanted to control the movements, or the rotations, or the size. Press Ctrl plus P and choose Parent Objects Keep Transformations. To clear the parenting in the future, click Alt plus P and select Clear Parent. Back to work. I want to parent a light inside each of the 3 pumpkins for realistic lighting effects. I will remove the particle system because it made a mess, and align everything manually. I add the evil mushroom to this collection, so we will set it manually as well. Let's align the original object first along with the axis. Now I will place them manually so I can control each of them correctly. This way I can ensure they won't touch anything and their faces will be oriented towards the camera in the correct way. Tip number 12. Don't align objects using only your mouse. Use the axis or the side location menu to adjust the numbers. We fixed the mushroom's animation to be looped correctly. Tip number 13. Looping. Be sure that the original keyframes are aligned at both the start and the end of the timeline. Otherwise, the scene won't loop properly. For example, this timeline is 1200 frames at 30 fps and the original animation is 100 frames. So, we can repeat it 12 times without any problem. But if, let's say, the original animation is 95 frames, repeating it will cause an issue. The end frame won't stop at frame 1200, the end of the scene. As you know, the end frame and the start frame should be the same to create a seamless loop. To fix this, stretch the original keyframes to fit the scene before applying a cycle animation. You will see an example later when I loop the Grim Reaper animations. I think my mushrooms is broken, so I will re-import it and redo what I did. I advise you to duplicate it multiple times without linking, so you can control the animation timing of each one individually. Otherwise, all of them will act the same at the same time. This was a mistake in my scene, so you can avoid it. Spread and position the mushrooms on the map manually. Checking the results before moving on the next step and making any necessary edits. What I want to do with this scythe is to turn it into giant doors between the landscapes. Let's make it as one mesh. I need to align the origin point, otherwise it will be a mess. Join them into one mesh. I tried to make a reflective copy quickly, but it turned out unprofessional at all. What a mistake. So I will show you an efficient way to do it. We will adjust that in edit mode. Here we check the side and everything else. I want to adjust the skeleton parts a bit. It's time for the dark castle or the haunted house setup. Adjusting the camera angle. Here I am thinking about where to place the castle and how. Here I am trying out some ideas. I will speed it up to the final idea so that it fits the scene. I am trying to figure out how to spread them throughout the scene. I need them to look great. The problem is that I already have many objects, so I was thinking of doing it without the castle, but I loved it so much. Thanks to Haunted House Halloween by Conrad Jason. Some checks and adjustments. Adding fog to the scene. Add a cube and adjust it. Then set the subdivision to 1 time. Here is the final fog material intensity amount, so you don't have to try for long. Like that's hell. The scene is heavy now, so I have to hide what I don't need in the viewport. Note, we can create a very advanced fog material that has much higher detail and realism, but for this scene, it will be a super heavy and not worth it at all. Before and after. And that's it for the fog. General edits and adjustments. Preparing for the loop. We select what we need to duplicate. The land, the assets that we placed manually, and the floating houses, nothing else. As for the fog and the reaper, they have a different looping method. Pay attention here to what is going on. Pressing Alt D, then G, then Y axis, and finally type 50. We do it again, press Alt plus D, then G, then Y axis, and type 50, and so on. We check with the camera if everything is correct, or if we duplicate something by mistake. We apply some keyframes for the camera now. Tip number 15. Looping. Be sure the first keyframe is at 0 and the last keyframe is at the end. However, we render from keyframe 1 to the end. Otherwise, the frame 0 and the last frame 1200 here, for example, will be exactly the same, which will break the loop. Make sure the keyframes are set to linear. It's very important. We animate the fog cube's movement in the same exact way as the camera. This way it moves with the camera without lag or broken pixels. It keeps the depth of view constant for the past loop. We want to animate the Grim Reaper and the moon. To create a cycle animation for the Grim Reaper, follow my steps. Now the problem here, as I explained in the evil mushroom part, is that the original animation doesn't fit the 1200 frames. It ends at around 300 or like more than 1200. You have to be careful here. We want to animate the Grim Reaper and the moon in exact same way. So they will have the same size, rotation, and every detail at both the start and the end. Don't forget the first keyframe at 0, but we will render from keyframe 1. Make sure the keyframes are set to linear again. Blender crashed. Just checking to be sure that there are no mistakes. Now it's time to set up the moon. Placing it properly. We set the first frame as we want the animation to start and end. Well, we have a problem here. Yeah, a stupid mesh. Unlink and join everything for easier animation.